Hello and welcome to dotdotdoc. I'm Ian, your host, and today I'm joined by Matt. Hello.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about episode 6 of Tiger King. Anyway, let's get into the tidbits before. So I found out that David Spade has been interviewing some of the members of Joe's crew on his YouTube show. I can't remember what his show's called. Do you remember what it's called?
What, Joe's YouTube show?
No, David Spade.
Oh, David Spade. No. I looked at it loads last night, so it should have stuck in my head, but it hasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, he interviewed Saf. He interviewed Robert Kirkham. Not Robert. Rick Kirkham. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And who else?
Jeff Lynne and his wife, and
Jeff Lowe,
and their nanny. Who did I say?
Jeff Lynne.
Jeff Lynne. Oh my God. Jeff Lowe. Sorry. His wife and their nanny.
And the nanny.
Yeah.
Ah.
Random.
Who else? There was someone else. Did he interviewed John Finley as well, didn't he? I'm sure I've seen like a picture of that. Joe's husband, or Joe's ex-husband.
Yeah. John with teeth. He's had his teeth done. Looks like a different man. It's amazing.
Insane. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. It's come up everywhere, like loads of different articles, like clickbait. You won't believe what John Finley looks like now, and it has like kind of him how he used to be, and like him with a cracking smile now. It's that Netflix money, I guess. So who knows? So what was the interviews like, without spoiling anything about the finale?
I watched. I literally just happened upon them quite late last night, and they're quite interesting. They don't really delve really deep into anything, but there's a lot of kind of questions that you as a viewer would kind of have, like to these characters. But yeah, I really enjoyed them. They're quite short. They're not long interviews. Again, Saf just comes across as amazing. The only thing I was disappointed is I really wanted to see an interview with Eric, but I can't seem to find anything about him, which is a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I guess maybe he was done with the show after he recorded the Netflix documentary, probably.
Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, there was no interview with Carol, but I can't imagine that Carol is very happy with the filmmaker, because she, again, we don't know the truth, or at least at this point we don't know the truth. But yeah, I can't imagine that she liked the light that she was perhaps painted in. So maybe a possible lawsuit in the future. Who knows?
And we might find out about that in the 8th episode. What? It's been confirmed. It's coming to Netflix this Sunday, the 12th of April. Which we didn't see coming at all, did we? We was well surprised about this. No.
I'll take back as well what I said about Jeff. I said I won't trust it if it comes from Jeff first. And obviously it's true. So, apologies, Jeff.
Yeah, it is. So it is a reunion show, isn't it? It's
from the sounds of things.
Yeah, I think I seen like a bit today, and it was it Joe? Is it Joe Hale? He's the guy from Community. No, is it Joel? Joel Hale?
Is it Joe?
I think it's Joel. Yeah,
Joel, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Joel Hale. Yeah, it's his. Yeah, he's interviewing the cast. He's done a couple of ones on. I can't remember. He's done some for some of the Netflix shows, like the post shows. Yeah.
I mean, I imagine it's going to be a kind of like, okay, you've seen the series now, the documentary series. What do you think of it? how do you think you were portrayed in the way that you actually were, or do you think that you were kind of characterized, so to speak? But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But again, after seeing some of these YouTube interviews that I've seen, I don't know if there's a lot more to learn, because you kind of get a rough idea of how they felt about the documentary series through those.
No. Yeah, so I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely going to cover that episode as well. So I don't know when. It might be Sunday. It might be Monday or that. We'll just do. Yeah, we'll share our thoughts. And anything else that comes to light,
really.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just wait and see, I guess. And yeah, that's it for the intro stuff. So we're gonna go into the episode. The episode opens with Joe talking from jail. He says, "I was asked to bail Jeff out of jail 2 times. The first was when he beat up and strangled his first wife, Kathy Lowe, and she went to confront him as he was being Mr. Show-Off with Lauren, his mistress at that time. But he got violent with her, and the second time was in Vegas, and they caught him sneaking cubs into hotels and shit. So, yeah, him threatening with his first wife and strangling her.
Yeah, not good.
No.
Really, really not good. And by the sounds of it, it's true. So yeah, it's doesn't look very good for Jeff at all.
No. And I knew there was going to be something about him sneaking cubs into the hotels and the casinos and that, because, you know, I just feel like it was one of those things that it would have definitely happened. Like, you know, the room service come up there and he's got, you know, we've got your carbonara, Jeff. Oh wait, what's that tiger cub doing there? Yeah,
I imagine as well. Like surely, like you'd hear these animals. Like obviously, a tiger cub's not going to be anywhere near as loud a kind of roar as a fully grown tiger. But yeah, I think if you walk into your room one day, you hear these little growls. You're really going to want. I mean, I know Vegas can get crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone's going to notice something. You obviously can't get away with that forever.
Yeah, because they kind of whine, don't they? I'm sure we've seen in the show they're like kind of.
Spot on, Ian.
Actually, yeah, I got a tiger cub right here. Just I'll put it back in the carrot case right now. Let me see if that was. So Jeff's place gets stormed by animal control in Vegas, I think it was. And they find he has 2 baby cubs there. They also found like loads of guns, like some handguns, some rifles, and he gets, I guess, sent to jail, and he gets fined. He gets found like guilty, and they said if he doesn't like do anything bad for like a year, he'll be fine. But as soon as he does something illegal or deals with anything like that, he'll be sent to prison for 179 days.
That's it. It's almost like people sometimes when they're on probation.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of gig, really. Like if they then commit a crime within that time, then you know that's it. That they're back inside. So similar type of thing, I think.
Yeah, and we find out from Joe that Jeff is a predator, a hardcore predator. So, and also was it John Rinke says that when Jeff Lowe come back from Vegas, that's when all hell broke loose. Ever since then, it's been the Jeff Lowe world. It's been a Jeff Lowe world. Sorry. And that's when
he came back, didn't he? And fired a lot of people, didn't he? From the sounds of things at the zoo.
Yeah, I think he fired pretty much all the, well, almost everybody, didn't he? Like, as far as I could tell, I think
And
maybe was it Eric was still there? Probably, maybe Saf might have been there still.
yeah,
But
but I think he came back, and it sounds like when he came back, he was like, okay, this this other avenue hasn't worked out for me.
hmm,
So now I'm coming back here, but I'm laying down the law, like I'm the boss, and maybe trying to make examples of people, to try and, I suppose it's a way of, trying to scare people into, okay, you don't mess with me. I'm the boss here. You do as I tell you, and as long as you do that, things will run smoothly. But if not, you're out the door.
yeah, he kind of, um, yeah, because he was in Vegas, uh, doing that van thing. You know, the bus thing where he would pick up people and then they were like,
Jungle Bus.
yeah, the Jungle Bus. He was doing the
Yeah.
Jungle Bus. So he comes back to Joe's zoo, or I guess his own zoo, and he was like trying to find out from Joe, like, because basically Joe locked him out of his online bank accounts.
He wanted to find out what had happened, like how Joe had basically been spending Jeff's money.
Yeah,
Um, and it sounds like he'd used the money for his presidential campaign, which I think Jeff had, like, specifically said to Joe, "Do not do that." And yeah, it comes across that Jeff was very, very unhappy with Joe when he got back, like extremely unhappy with him. But
yeah,
I don't know if that was more a kind of like Jeff's just been caught out doing all this dodgy business, so maybe there's a slight bitterness on his return.
yeah,
Because I guess in his mind he thinks, well, Joe, you've done dodgy stuff all the time you've been here, and you seemingly seem to have got away with it. And I do this, I get caught, and I get the kibosh put on me. So maybe it's a slight bit of bitterness when he returns.
yeah. And obviously Joe did Kane a lot of money on his
Yeah,
campaign. He what? It was like $88,000, and he forged Jeff's name 20 times. And
yeah.
he used it to buy like flyers and his T-shirts and like his uh, condoms with his face on it. And what was it like? My favorite bit was it like on the condom. It says on the bottom that it was paid for by the Joe Exotic Committee or something like that. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but yeah, it definitely, or to me, it comes across, with Jeff, like, obviously, if you've given someone the opportunity to use your bank, in order to, I guess, make the zoo better, and then that person hasn't actually used it for that, they've used it to promote themselves in something that they were clearly never going to win.
Yep.
So it is literally just throwing money in the trash. So you can understand that anger, but I also strongly believe that Jeff came back with the attitude that he did. It was an ego thing for him. Like he'd just been knocked down, like, by the law. So he had to come back strong, and that was his way of doing it. Like it was a very much so, like the way I looked at it, very much an ego thing.
Yeah, because he's got so much to lose. His name comes into this, then he's going away for 179 days again. Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's going to lose his freedom. And imagine, yeah, that's not something he wants. So he comes back and he's like finds out this. It's like a new plot twist, and he knows that he will just go to jail if they find out this. Like because
Yeah,
using the funds from the zoo to fund this campaign was yeah, it's not allowed.
it's at this point where it really looks like Jeff is now really coming to the understanding that Joe is a massive liability, to Jeff, and like you say, Joe could be the reason that, or part of the reason that Jeff lands himself in jail. which obviously Jeff does not want. So it really does seem at this point he's like, okay, well, enough's enough now. Like the games are over. Time to be serious.
Yeah, and one thing I thought was interesting as well is Jeff goes into the bank and he finds out from the person at the bank that Joe's being investigated by the feds.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting because you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to, if you as a person working at a bank, you're not allowed to let anybody know that their account is being looked into, investigated, whatsoever, because it affects it. Like they're monitoring it for fraud, and you're not allowed to tip off the person who is being investigated. But like, let's say if your bank account got locked down tomorrow and you couldn't do anything, and you'd ring up and you'd be like, hey, what's going on? They wouldn't be able to tell you anything, full stop, because it's tipping off. You're not allowed to do that.
I think as well with it, like I don't know, this might not be 100% the case, but I think with any kind of investigation, if you tip off the person, especially if it's the person that's being investigated, it can hold a real danger of getting the case thrown out.
Yeah.
And obviously the feds, they want to get their guy, you know. So yeah, I think it can hold connotations like that too.
Well, I know in the UK, I think it can lead to like fines. Like you can get fired if you worked at the bank, and you probably could get a prison sentence for it as well. Because you only have one job to do, and it's not tell the people that are being investigated, because you know fraud's a big thing. So Jeff confronts Joe and says, like, what you playing at? And ends up kicking him out of the zoo. He just kind of says, because Joe says, I'll just leave. And because he couldn't really explain that, like, him forging Jeff's name, using all that money, and realizing it was, like, he didn't realize it was illegal, because he was just had access to it. And, yeah, so Jeff kicks him out. But before Joe left the zoo, he burnt everything. You see him just throwing like petrol on like all these files, and he burns like laptops and hard drives and just anything that could lead for his campaign using the money from the zoo.
For the first time in this entire series, it looks like Joe is genuinely scared.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing I took. Like it looks like he is genuinely scared of what could happen. And like you say, yeah, he just goes able on getting anything he can that might hold any form of evidence, and is just absolutely obliterating it.
He just goes running, doesn't he? Like he gets a truck, starts piling animals into it, which are worth quite a lot each. What, $3,000 a piece? Someone said.
Yeah.
One of the workers.
That whole scene was quite upsetting. Like there's a part where you see they're loading up a tiger. Well, first you see Joe injecting the tiger, which I'm pretty sure Joe isn't a veterinarian, but I don't know. I don't know if keepers are allowed to do that. Possibly they are. But I'm sure they say something like, it's got to be like 3 milligrams or something like that. And then you hear Joe say, well, I've given it 5. And that's dangerous. And then you see, whilst it's in this truck, Joe's like poking it with a stick. And it feels like that's to try and keep it as kind of with it as he can, so it doesn't die.
Yeah.
And you actually hear Joe say to the tiger, I'm sorry. And the whole thing is just kind of heartbreaking. Like for the tigers more than anyone else, like these are living creatures at the end of the day. And yeah, like watching that scene was quite difficult, like for me, and I'm guessing for a lot of viewers. But yeah, it was quite difficult to watch that whole scene.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression that the reason why he said "I'm sorry" to the tiger was because he was poking it with a stick, and I didn't. I kind of get what you mean by him saying, by him doing it because he wanted to keep the tiger conscious. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I didn't get that. So that's a interesting take on that one.
And I suppose as well, I don't know if it's a case of Joe is sorry because I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm trying to keep you awake so you don't die because your life is so precious. Or is it more a case of, I don't want you to die because you are 3 grand to me? And that's the contrast right there. Is it for the love of the animal, or is it for the love of money? I'd like to think it's for the love of the animal, but as I said in our last podcast, the more this goes on, the more I'm kind of finding that I'm a little bit disappointed with Joe, as this goes on.
I think he does love the animals because he wouldn't be in it for any other reason. I think he does, like the tigers and that. He's pretty
Oh, of
growing
course,
these tigers. Like as
but
he's raised them. I mean,
at
sorry.
this point, it's money that
Hmm.
he needs, and he's selling these tigers in
Yeah.
order to gain money. So I think at this, it's very difficult, like, because I'm very much of the mindset this far in where I'm like, I really want to believe that deep down Joe is a good guy, and I think there is a good guy in there. But I think like those last few years have like changed him to a degree, and he's in a position right now where he's desperate. He's absolutely desperate, and desperation can change a guy.
I thought it was interesting how one of the employees thought that the reason why they were doing that with the tigers and putting them into trucks and sneaking them out and stuff was because Jeff was taking the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it makes me wonder if Joe told them that, oh, Jeff needs these out, and
Yeah, maybe, like, because Joe comes across very much so that he will he will say what, it might not be the truth, but it might be what he wants you to hear. He seems very much that sort of style character of, even sometimes his heart might be completely in the right place, but he will perhaps lie to make things look better on himself. Like, that seems to be a rather big part of his character. I mean, obviously, it's going down a real psychological route. And again, I'm no psychologist. I haven't studied that to any degree. But that's the take I get from it.
yeah, I wrote down in my notes, "Where's Alan?" Because he's sneaking out these animals like at different times of night. He's tranking the tigers, and I was thinking that if Alan was like Jeff's right hand man, where is he? Like he would stop this completely. There's no way he would have this happening. Which
What, he wouldn't allow Joe to be taking the tigers?
no, not at all. Because like he works for Jeff, and essentially Jeff, like Joe's stealing from Jeff, isn't he?
But are they? It, yeah,
He owns the
I
zoo,
mean,
so
it's
yeah.
he does, but are they personally Joe's tigers? Like, I don't know. Are they owned by the zoo, or are they personally owned by Joe? Um, that's something obviously we probably have to look into a bit further.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just assume that because Jeff owns the whole zoo, the park, they are his.
Then,
So
yeah, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it comes down to, at the end of the day, they're assets of that zoo.
yeah.
So yeah.
On the last day of him being at the park, the zoo, Jeff says to Joe, if he comes back, he'll shoot him in the head. And that was it. We see a new music video from Joe. I've written down as "Goodbye Song,"
Hmm.
and I thought,
Yeah, it's like his farewell, isn't it?
yeah, but I don't think it was. the guys who did that, his former songs had written a song about him leaving the zoo.
It was probably for something else.
It might have been for
maybe
Travis, or it might have been for,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. Perhaps a death of either like one of Joe's loved ones, or possibly even a death of a tiger, one of the big cats. Maybe Joe wrote to them and said, "Look, we've lost one of our first big cats that we first got that opened the zoo. It's really emotional. Can you write this farewell song?" So yeah, again, that's this sort of stuff we can possibly dig into a bit further. If there is any information out there, but there might not be.
So Joe ends up at an undisclosed location. It was him and Dylan, his husband, and he took like a couple of tigers. I think he took 2 baby tiger cubs with them to some mysterious location. I think it was southern Oklahoma, or
I think so.
Yeah, we find out he's taken like Dylan's surname, but also Travis's as well. So it's like, was it what is Travis' surname? Is it Moldalovo Passage?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, Passage. Yeah. Moldalovo Passage, like hyphenated Passage.
Yeah, Moldalovo. I can't even pronounce that name. I can pronounce Joe's real name better than I can pronounce that. Moldano? No, Moldano? I don't know. The director asked Joe who he thought won in the end, and Joe says the animal rights people. The director says, "What about Carol?" So Joe says, "I still believe that she should rot in jail for killing her husband." And he says that he believes in karma and believes that a few people have it coming to them. And then he's just sick out of nowhere. He just kind of, I don't know. I guess
that's probably just it could be drugs or alcohol related. But I also look at that as like this build up of like possibly this bit, or at least the way it's maybe made to look in the documentary is there's this build up of stress, just like, because even in this documentary, like Joe's been through a lot, like a lot of his brought upon himself, no doubt at all, but he's been through a lot, like a lot of this, like you would look at like a British TV soap, and sometimes you look at these characters in soaps and you think, well, nobody actually lives that kind of life, like a funeral every week, a wedding the next day, a split up in a marriage, like after the day after the wedding, just this absolute craziness. But it comes across that like that is kind of Joe's life. So again, it probably is kind of drug or alcohol related, but I think it's kind of made to look like this whole series has been building up to this point from the very beginning, and maybe it's a way of them kind of conveying that okay, we're getting to the crescendo now.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I got from this though, I feel like Dylan is really good for him in terms of he doesn't seem like he's on anything. He doesn't seem like he has any kind of addictions. He kind of seems just like straight edge, which I thought was a good thing. Maybe
he seems to love him.
Yeah,
yeah. It doesn't feel like this guy's being kind of coerced into the relationship. Again, we can only go off what we're being shown.
Yeah.
So there could be episode 8 we might get some
yeah,
completely different story. But at least from what you can see and the way it looks, it kind of looks like he loves him. So maybe like he's finally found happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, as far as we could tell, at this place, him like in this like little house in the middle of nowhere. That they are hiding out but being content. Like, they're happy because they got these 2 little baby tigers, and things at the moment are okay as they can be.
Yeah.
But then we find out from Jeff that he says to everybody that Jeff has a hit on him. So that's why he said like he ran off into the middle of nowhere because like he claimed that Jeff had put out like a hit on him. And he tries to look
I think as well. Sorry, I think as well. Somebody, I can't remember who it is, but somebody says whatever Jeff said to Joe scared the hell out of him. Like that was what made him run. And obviously, from what we've seen by this point, like we're left to assume that it's that okay, you know you're in trouble, like, or you've spent all this money, you can get in a lot of trouble for this. But there is that kind of like lasting thought of like, did he say something else? Like, because we've already heard Jeff say, if you come back to this zoo, I'll put a bullet through your head.
Yeah.
Like, and I can't imagine, like, Joe is, like, a lot of Joe is all talk. Like, he's kind of all bark and no bite. Or in this sense, all growl and no bite, maybe. But, yeah, I think if a threat from someone like Jeff was put onto Joe, I think it would absolutely scare the hell out of him. And I think Joe realized that whatever was said, Joe realized that Jeff meant business.
In this episode, the director secretly records like a few people in it. He there's a bit where he goes into the zoo and he's asking like, "Oh, where's Joe?" And he's like secretly recording, and well, the employees are saying, "Oh, he's retired," and we find out that everything with Joe's association was completely burnt. Like anything with his face on it, anything like related to Joe is just gone. They started afresh. And what was it like? James Garretson. He was like, "Oh, he just wanted to be the Tiger Queen. Oh, I mean King." Which
kind of a bit of a like sly dig there, wasn't it? Like that's not a mistake. He hasn't said that by mistake.
No,
like
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't even subtle.
Wasn't
even subtle.
No,
so.
It's a sly dig, like a little. I'm gonna kick someone when they're down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we move on to the major thing, which is we see. So John Rinke gets interviewed in some kind of motel, and the director says, "Oh, like what have they been saying?" And John Rinke says apparently he solicited someone to kill Carol Baskin, and he said that everybody said that we should just kill the bitch, but he was like, we never actually went through with it or even talked about going through with it, and this is where it takes a turn. This is where has come out that he's apparently asked people to kill, supposedly to kill Carol Baskin. We see his security guy interviewed, and he was like, "Oh, I hear that you could make things happen. Can you take care of Carol for me?" Security guy's like, "No." So, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I hear you can take. I hear you can take care of my little problem down in Florida.
Yeah.
Like, what do I think of that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the security guard.
No.
I don't know if he's employed by Jeff or if he knows Jeff.
Was it Joe's security guard? To us, the guy's been in this whole documentary for a matter of like less than a minute, I think. He was in one episode.
Yeah. So again, there's not really a lot to go off there in terms of like, okay, do I believe this guy? But then you've also got to think, then why would someone just come out with that?
Yeah.
So it does sound like Joe probably did say it, but then at the same time, John Rinke's already said that we all said it. We all wanted Carol dead, and they all made it in passing comment, and there was no one more kind of affected by Carol Baskin than Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
So Joe, if everyone was saying it, Joe's just gone that step further by again. It's tough because he's doing the same thing. He's saying the same thing, but he's kind of like, I guess it sounds as if he's kind of like, he's putting that kind of branch out there to see if someone will I guess grasp onto it. Do you know what I mean? Like he's kind of he's asking someone without actually asking them. It's almost like, oh, I guess you could say, oh, I guess in his defense, he could say, oh, well, I was kidding. You know, like Rinky said, we all say this. You know, we've all said this in passing. So Joe could, in his defense, say, well, I was kidding. You know, I don't get on with Carol. She's trouble for me and my zoo. So yeah, I said it.
Do you reckon that she deserves to die from this, though?
I don't think anyone deserves to die. I don't. This is just a little window into my point of view, but I don't even believe in the death penalty, and that's just my own personal view. It's not something I believe in. I don't believe in an eye for an eye. That's my own personal view. I'm sure other people have a different view, and we're all entitled to our views. So no, I don't believe she deserved to die, but like I've been in situations before, never where I've wished death on someone like that.
Yeah.
But in different terms, where like if I'm around a group of friends or people that, you know, I trust or that get me or get my sense of humor, I might have said some things in the past that, if amplified and put on a documentary, it could make you look really bad.
Yeah.
So no, I don't believe that Carol deserves death for what she done. If she did murder her ex-husband,
No.
I believe that she deserves to be, I guess, in jail. You know, I believe in justice, but I don't believe in death for someone.
It's a bit extreme, isn't it?
How about yourself?
No, yeah, I think
exactly.
it's just too extreme. It's kind of, as much as this person is causing you like major problems overall, like it's your whole lifestyle is impacted by it, and you know, people feel like she's ruining it for everybody else, and she kind of considers to be the problem. Even if I feel like even if they did take her out, it wouldn't stop the overall problem of having big cats and you know, the breeding of cubs, because that will come in to law at some point. It's, you know,
of course it will.
Just taking her out.
It's a progression, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like eventually things progress, or you'd like to think that they do, and progress for the betterment of these animals, and you know, in order to save them. So yeah, if anything, her death might have, like, if she was murdered, I guess you could look at it that cause would be made even bigger, and she would then be like this,
like martyr.
This kind of, yeah, exactly. And it could, like, if they had her killed, then they could be in an even worse position in themselves right now.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think Joe would have looked at it that way.
We find out that James Garretson sold John Rinke a stolen Hummer, which I don't know. I mean, it just feels like he's kind of, this James Garretson guy has just been playing too much GTA, and he's got a strip club. He's
he does though. He's like he comes across quite slimy.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that type of character that kind of does bad things, but has this like easy way of getting out of it. But yeah, he just comes across really, really slimy and extremely untrustworthy.
We find out from the director because like some reason this director does a lot of secret film in this episode. I think it's because like obviously James won't talk like this on camera, just normally. So it's a bit bizarre because like,
I was going to say, I think in a way, it's kind of, it's kind of ironic as well, the way that the filmmaker got James on hidden camera, because James becomes an informant.
yeah.
And it's kind of ironic then that the filmmaker then goes, you've basically tried to screw all these guys over to save your own skin, basically. And it's very ironic that then that has been kind of done to him as well. And I guess in a way, rightfully so.
We find out from the secret filming of James that there was actually a meeting about killing Carol. It had Joe, James, and Jeff in it. And Joe's like, look, just kill her on the cycle path, because there's videos of her cycling along, like vlogging into her phone, and he suggests, look, you just shoot her whilst you cycle along here, and nobody will ever know she was assassinated or that. Nobody will know who did it. And he tries to convince Alan. Alan, we found out from like the last episodes, to do it, and he suggests that, like, hey, you can just do it with a crossbow. You don't have to shoot her. Just use a crossbow. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? There's no way." Like, Alan looks like, are you taking the piss? He's not gonna get all like kind of suited up in camouflage and then like hide out and kill her with a crossbow.
Rambo Alan.
Yeah, Rambo Alan. But I love Alan because he's a man of like very few words. Like very few words. Like
yeah.
He's the kind of guy who texts back just okay, like that, or
definitely.
Yeah. And Joe does something really, really stupid here. Like in a sec, he basically uploads to Facebook, on his Facebook. Finally found out where the bitch lives, and it has a picture of it was like Google Street Maps and that Street View, and it shows you where Carol lives. And he took has a screenshot of it, put it on his Facebook. Finally found out where Carol lives, and why would you do that? Like, especially if he's talking about possibly killing her.
Yeah.
It's
very, very dumb.
He might as well record the whole conversation. It's ridiculous.
But then also, to a degree, like, I look at that as almost like it, I could be completely wrong, but almost evidence of that Joe didn't mean it. Like, because if you really wanted to have someone killed and you were planning it, you wouldn't put something out there like that.
Yeah.
So to me, that kind of says that Joe possibly wasn't serious about having her killed.
Yeah.
Maybe it was all just like bravado with him.
Yeah, like a scare tactic.
Yeah, I mean, he's been shooting her in the face on videos for years, like, or not her literally, but obviously this mannequin doll or this sex doll.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and obviously with that, if Carol Baskin did one day show up, like the cops found her dead, shot in the head,
yeah,
like, with those videos out there and surfacing around the internet, then Joe would be literally the first guy you would go to.
Yeah. Suspect number one, for sure.
Says, 100%. So to me, that kind of screams to me that maybe that was Joe's way of, in a way, it looks like it's his way of saying, I'm not serious about this. Like, this is a part of the Joe Exotic show. And part of his show is that he hates Carol Baskin. Like, it draws numbers for him. So yeah, I kind of looked at it like that, or he's just dumb as muck and and put it out there. But surely it's not that dim.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah.
we find out that Jeff said to James, for $500,000, he'll hand over all the stuff that he has on Joe to Carol Baskin. Like he'll just tell everything. To because he wants to get rid of Joe. He hates Joe. And James is like, yeah, I'll do that. He says he asked for like $1,000 or something to do it. So he ends up sending like a text to Carol and says like, oh, call me for information about Joe. Obviously Carol and Howard look at this
Well,
and like,
he tries to phone her first, doesn't he? He tries to call her.
oh yeah,
and they see that the number's from, I'm guessing, Oklahoma.
yeah.
So straight away she's like, well, I'm not answering that. That's
Yeah.
probably Joe
Yeah.
drunk about to rant down the phone to me. So yeah, she doesn't answer, and then that text is sent through.
Yeah. And then what they do is they just pass it to the FBI, and it's not completely the FBI. It's like basically a special agent of Fish and Wildlife calls James and says, "Hey, what's going on with this? You know, what information you got about Joe?" And then James basically becomes a confidential informant for the Wildlife FBI.
Well, they go and visit him, don't they? And I think when they go and visit, they see that he's got like a lemur or something animal caged up in this place, and it's like not suitable whatsoever for this animal. So straight away when they go in, they see this, and obviously being, protection of wildlife, straight up, they're like, well, you realize that what you're doing here with this animal could get you sent down for a long time. So they kind of use that as a kind of bargaining chip for, if you become this informant for us, then we'll let that slide. And obviously James is like, well, okay, looks like I'm doing this now. But again, I don't think he comes across as a very trustworthy person whatsoever anyway. No, just a kind of nasty individual.
Yeah, just parasite. He comes across as a bit of a parasite to me.
Big time.
Or a walking Chucky doll, as he was referred to in this, which I thought was great. So we find out Joe tried to get Alan to kill Carol. Alan kind of just goes MIA, and nothing happens from that. Then Carol gets super paranoid because she finds out about the threat to her life, like the FBI informer. Oh, you got a threat to your life. We think someone's got a hit on you, and she gets super paranoid. She keeps like guns by her bed and in her car. She like stops biking around and doing those videos, and yeah, she finds out from, I don't know, it must have come back from James that the plan was to drug Carol, drag her to the swamp, and cut her into pieces, which is horrific. I don't think that even seems like real in terms of.
Yeah, it's like something from the movies.
Yeah, going from like shooting her to drugging her, dragging her into a swamp, cut her into pieces, and that's it. Because
just insanity.
It wasn't because it was like paralyzing her as well. It wasn't like so she'd be alive if that happened. That's what's horrible to think about. James tries to contact Alan, find out, hey Alan, where are you? And Alan's like, yeah, I'll come back, it's not working out and stuff like that. And James, being like a little rat, passes the message on to the FBI. They like realize that Alan's probably not a threat anymore. So James ends up finding like an undercover agent from the FBI and presents him to Joe and says like, oh, this person to kill Carol for you. and they agree on $5,000 up front, and then $5,000 after the job's done.
Hmm.
Unfortunately for the FBI and the undercover agents and everybody involved, Joe didn't make any payments whatsoever. They kept on waiting to get the money, and Joe's like, "Oh yeah, I'll try to get the money for you." But I can imagine at this time, Joe's got no income whatsoever apart from, maybe selling a couple of tigers, which he probably, he's probably already exhausted that money.
Yeah.
And all of his money's just someone else's now. It's pretty tied up in his, mum's account probably at this time, and even Jeff's account even. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Joe. Well, Joe owed a lot of money anyway.
Yeah.
But also, like, I again, it doesn't. I don't think it states in this, but I imagine that Joe's husband isn't working. So a lot of that money is kind of for the both of them to kind of, I guess, live out the rest of their lives. And yeah, I can't imagine it lasted very long at all.
No. Jeff decides to get involved. He's like, "Yeah, I want to take down Joe." And he just basically finds out that, well, the FBI of Fish and Game couldn't do anything because no money was ever exchanged. But we find out the day before Alan left, Joe paid him to kill Carol. Although it wasn't the $5,000 like was stated. It was only $3,000, and it kind of seems like Alan just kind of wanted to screw Joe over. He wanted to kind of probably just take the money and run. Anyway, he wasn't gonna. I don't think he ever wanted to kill Carol. He was just gonna. The whole plan was just to take the money and run.
It very much comes across that, or at least to me, that Alan and Jeff are kind of in cahoots on this whole thing, and it's not about saving someone's life or stopping Carol Baskin from being killed. It's a case of, we need Joe Exotic out of the picture, and we can, I guess, possibly set it up to look like Joe was going to do all this stuff. And again, Joe doesn't help himself in a lot of situations, but it very much so feels like they're taking advantage of Joe at this point.
Yeah, Alan said that he wanted immunity as well, and Jeff was like, "Oh no, you won't be able to get immunity for doing that, like for accepting money to kill someone." I don't know. Alan just seems like a man of. He's not even few words. It's almost like no words. He's like kind of Daryl Dixon of the show. He's like kind of the Walking Dead, like Norman Reedus. That's what he reminds me of. Him.
He's another guy who just, again, only from what I've seen, but my personal take is I do not trust that man.
No, definitely not.
I don't trust him. I don't trust Jeff. I don't trust James. No. And it feels like there's very much so this like kind of like freeway attack on Joe. And they're all kind of working together to like put all the right pieces in place.
Joe ends up getting indicted because now that there was some kind of proof that Joe paid Alan $3,000 to kill Carol, that was all they needed. So Joe and Dylan are pretending to be in Belize. They're like uploading pictures to Instagram, then them just chilling out on the beach and stuff. And they're like, "Oh yeah, like having a great time in Belize. It's going great." And James looks at this and he goes, "No way they're in Belize. No way. That's Florida water." And the FBI end up like finding out one of Joe's burner phone numbers and pinging the phone and finding out where he is through cell towers and stuff like that. Whatever they do on, CSI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Joe gets arrested in a car park.
Like they actually they do a little kind of almost like a reconstruction.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of like, one of them, like, I don't know if you remember the old show Cops, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it was like something off of that. But yeah, doesn't Joe write his partner or his husband a letter sort of explaining what happened and the way it all went down? And he said, I think at the end, like, anyone would have thought that that I was Ted Bundy, who is obviously, you know, notorious serial killer. And yeah, it does kind of come across that way, like very extreme.
Yeah.
Like the last thing he saw was like a gun in his face. Like really, really extreme. And I can imagine absolutely petrifying.
Yeah, Joe says he's just counting down the day to tell his story. We see him kind of like calling into like a news studio, just saying how it is, how he was arrested, and he's like what it was like being arrested. And the newscasters and like the news anchors and stuff were like, he just sells. He just, you know, people love hearing about him because he's just such a character, and people will definitely watch anything he says.
Exactly. He's extremely controversial, and as we know in this world, like, controversy creates cash, and it very much comes across that way. Like for these news anchors and things, like they basically saying like he will bring us viewers, he'll bring us ratings, and that's the reason they're speaking to him more than anything else, is for their own gain. So again, like this whole documentary series, like I'd say a massive theme of the whole thing is exploitation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
everybody's exploiting everybody in this documentary. Towards the end of the documentary, though, we find out that Jeff and James are building like a new zoo, and they find like a whole big plot of land. They're building it. They're gonna like make this super cool. It's like 40 acres zoo.
Yeah, down in Vegas, isn't it?
Yeah, down in Vegas, right next
behind a casino.
Yeah, next to a casino, I think. I think as far as I can tell, it's in Vegas. And
like I've heard in one of the David Spade interviews. I think it was the one where he was talking to Jeff, and this isn't a spoiler, it's just about that zoo. And like David Spade said, like he's played a lot of shows there at this casino. And he said there's like he's glad that there's a zoo going there, because it's like the casino, like, and nothing. Like there's nothing else there. So he said, you know, he'd welcome something else there to be able to, you know, after playing a gig or something, you know, playing a bit of blackjack at the casino, like to be able to go out and actually do something else rather than, I guess I'll just go to my hotel room and, you know, twiddle my thumbs and watch telly or whatever, order room service.
Yeah, go see some bears and tigers and stuff instead.
Yeah.
And lastly, the documentary ends on this cliffhanger. Alan is being interviewed, and he says he just went and told the FBI exactly what Jeff told him to say. And he said, I'm glad I did, because otherwise I'll be in there with him, as in Joe in jail. Yeah.
You become privy to a phone conversation between Alan and Jeff, and it's basically Jeff kind of like without actually saying it, he's like almost directing Alan to say certain things. Like he says, you know, you want to be on the Fed side with this, Alan. You don't want to be on Joe's side with this. You want to be on the Fed side. And he specifically says, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but, and then what ensues is him basically putting words into his mouth. Very, very dodgy.
Do you reckon that there was no 3,000?
What, that it wasn't paid?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming, because at this point, and like earlier on in the documentary, Jeff basically said, you know, the FBI couldn't do anything because there was no money exchanged, so there was no laws being broke. It was just kind of like freedom of speech. I want to kill Carol. I want you to kill Carol. There's, you know, until there's money exchanged for the acts. of killing someone,
They can't do anything.
Can't do anything. If Alan says that he did receive $3,000 from Joe, then that makes it real.
Game over for Joe.
Yeah.
Game over for Joe.
So, and
I mean, I can't guarantee that did or didn't take place, but it very much so looks that way. And like I said before, it very much so comes across that Alan, Jeff, and James are working together here. And 3 against 1, you don't stand much of a chance, do you?
No. Joe definitely didn't.
No.
And that's it, I think. That's it for the episode. Another episode in the bank.
Wee.
Right, so...
One more. Oh, no. 2 more possibly to go now.
Yeah, we got 2 more to go. Like, just when we thought we was almost out, we got pulled back in. I fucked that quite up completely. So, yep, that's it for today's episode. If you liked it, subscribe. If you haven't already, contact us on the socials. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
We're on YouTube now.
On YouTube, search dotdotdoc, and you'll see our logo. Click on that. You'll see all
Give us a like and subscribe. Be great. And obviously, if you feel free, leave us a comment on YouTube as well. We'll check the socials as constantly as possible, and obviously we'll do our very best to get back to you.
That's all, everybody. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.